Hello everybody and welcome back. So, here we have a Viavi OneExpert testing meter. So, what is this thing? It's a multifunctional testing tool designed to be used by field technicians that work at an ISP, Internet Service Provider. Its primary function is to test cable TV. So, you see up there, it says, yet OneExpert. So let's just take a quick tour of this thing physically. So yeah, here's the front of it right here. On the top here are the two cable ports. Here's the bottom. And this also just shows you how thick this unit is and just overall how big it is. Over here in this compartment, we have two Ethernet ports and two USBs. From what I'm told, the USBs are actually for testing fiber. Yeah. And then, yeah, here's the back of the unit. Yeah. So, as you even see on the side here, it says OneExpert CATV right there. So now, let's just, let's do the power on sequence of this thing. Just hold down the power button down here. Yep, there we go. Alright, so yeah, now here we are at the main screen. It has booted up finally. So, yeah, you see there's a section right here that says CATV, and there are a bunch of different programs that you can run for that, different tests. There's my tests. Yeah, we're not going to go too much into that, honestly. There's a fiber section here. Ethernet. So this thing can also run Ethernet tests too. It's capable of Wi-Fi. It has other like wiring testing tools, I think, for Ethernet mainly. And then there's just other things like system settings, the sync program, web browser right there. So, in this video, I'm primarily going to be covering just one of the basic Ethernet tests that you can do on this thing. So, in this example, I'm going to be using OneCheck, this one right here. So, and this thing is also a touchscreen too, as you saw, so, so in order to navigate, you can either use, this, the arrows down here, the physical arrows, or you can also just touch it on the screen. So, let's open OneCheck. Alright, so yep, now OneCheck is open. So, yep, there are three different locations that you can do a OneCheck test. At the equipment, that's the CPE. The ground block, that's, the house box on the side of the house, where the cable meets the house and then enters the house. And then tap, that's usually up at a pole or at an underground pedestal. So, in this case, let me just select a random job there, because it saves results based off of different account numbers too. So anyhow, I'm just going to show you guys a basic scan here. I'm going to use the equipment selection. So in order to run this test, we need to have a cable that's hooked up to port number 1 on top of the meter. So let me just get a port hooked up real fast. Or not a port, a cable, you know what I meant. Alright, so now I have a cable going to port number 1 on top of the meter here. So So yeah, now I'm going to start this test and show you guys what a good scan should look like. So I'm just going to hit start right here. Alright, so now the scan has finally completed. So, yeah, this is an example of what a good scan should look like. So, looking at the section that says downstream right there, you see that whole graph it just made, or the spectrum, or whatever you want to call it. You see how it's mostly flat for the most part. I mean, sure, maybe some slight little bumps, but that's okay. You mainly want that spectrum to be mostly flat like that, and not have any steep inclines or any steep drops in that spectrum all the way across the board. And then down here at the DOCSIS section, well, I'm only just going to point out a couple of things because some of those things are a little bit more detailed, and this isn't really intended to be a cable school. Well, actually, at the downstream, you see where it says max right next to level dB and V. That's negative 3.1. And then it says minimum RX right there is negative 5.8. So, comparing those two numbers, that's not a very big loss of signal. Now, if it was like negative 3.1 up there, and then it was getting down to like, you know, negative 12 or something, then we'd have a problem. So at least for this cable company, the maximum amount of signal you can have in dB and V is, let's see, I believe is 15 dB and V, plus 15, and the minimum, absolute minimum, is negative 12. So I would say we're good here. And then one more other thing I'm going to point out is you see the TX right there. So yeah, the TX should usually be around the 40s range, like it is right now. I mean, if it's getting into low 50s, that's still technically operable, but when it's getting to be like 59 or 58 or 59, then yeah, we're going to start to have a problem. So yeah, that's basically the summary of what a good scan looks like. Now, something else I'm also going to show you guys is an example of a bad scan. So let me get a bad scan pulled up. Okay, so actually right here is an example of one bad scan I could find. The graph looks like a little bit more broken up than the other one did, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Usually that might just indicate the presence of a splitter on the line. But look at the max right here, negative 1.8, and look at the minimum RX. It's clear down to negative 21. So yeah, that's a bad scan right there. Bad signal. Equipment is not going to operate properly like that. Let me find another one. Well, so actually, as it turns out, that's actually the only bad scan that I could find. All I'm going to say is, without being able to show you, is another way you can tell you have a bad cable scan is if you see that graph I showed you. If, like I said, it's perhaps like really hilly, or there are just random like steep drop-offs in that graph. Or another thing to look out for is if the graph is just really broken up. Large gaps in it. So yeah, those are just other things to look for in that. So now I'm going to show you guys another variation of this test on OneCheck that you can do. So last time we just did it says CPE, that just means at the equipment side. And for that one, you only have to have just one single cable hooked up going into port number 1. But now if we do a test at either the ground block or the tap, it's also going to be looking for a cable on port number 2, because on OneCheck it also combines the ingress scan into the whole scan as well. So it scans ingress and the health of the cable all at the same time. You guys probably remember a previous video I made on this meter doing the ingress scan, just a standalone test. Well, OneCheck also has that combined into these tests too. So let's start a ground block test, but I don't have anything hooked to number 2 and don't have anything really too hooked to number 2, so at first it's going to give me a message saying like check your connection on number 2. I'll just ignore it, and then we'll see an ingress scan anyway. Yeah, we're just gonna ignore that. And yep, now you see up top there, it's also doing an ingress scan at the same time as checking the health of the incoming signal too. Alright, so now that scan is done too. So you see, I mean, the numbers we talked about before, like the max level dB&V up there at the downstream section, and then the minimum RX down there, it's still mostly the same, but you see how now the whole graph on this scan is redded out. So I mean, the only reason it's giving red now is because the level is too low for the configured parameters on this meter at the ground block, the preset parameters. So yeah, it's just saying the levels, the signal levels, like should not be this low at the ground block, but it didn't read out at the CPE scan because it was still within the preset parameters configured for the CPE scan on this meter. So yeah, honestly, I think I've probably covered everything I want to cover in this episode. So yeah, that's one of the basic tests that you can do for cable using this meter on OneCheck. So anyhow, thank you guys all for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.